Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Sports Vault. I'm your host with the most, Jersey Joe Artino, and the NFL draft is upon us. News coming out today. Now, if you follow me and you follow all of my work, you know that I've followed Marcus Mariota as close as possible, done a lot of work on him, so I'm very excited to see where he's going to end up. Now, we do have news today that the Cleveland Browns have offered 2 first-round picks to the Tennessee Titans for that number 2 overall selection, and I want to preface this to say that as a fan of Marcus, that's probably the last place I would want him to go. From a Brown standpoint, I get it. If that's your guy, you got to go and do whatever you need to. But again, as a fan of Marcus Mariota, I would not ever want him to put on a Browns uniform. You look at the way things lined up for them last year with Brian Hoyer and Manziel. Now you have Marcus Mariota. So much instability there, and I think for a young quarterback to come into a situation like this, and there's so much controversy and turmoil, and there's a front office trouble, and there's trouble on the coaching staff, there's too much instability, and stability breeds success in sports and in life, and when you come into a situation filled with instability, look, it just makes sense. You're not going to be able to put up your best work. So that's the reason why, as a fan, I would not like him to see him go there. Now, again, there's nothing confirmed about this. They just offered that. There's a lot of people who still think the Browns would need to do a lot more to get this deal done. But the interesting thing is, I don't think anyone can still really put their finger on what's going to happen with that number 2 pick. I think right now it seems like almost everyone is in the direction, in the camp of Jameis is going number 1 overall. But I still think there's not a definitive answer in that department as well. Mainly from the point of the Buccaneers family is very highly regarded, and they weren't always too sold on bringing Jameis Winston, making him the face of their franchise with his track record. So I don't think you can even say for him. I think most likely that's what's going to happen. James will go number 1. But again, number 2, there's no guarantees right now. Are the Tennessee Titans going to trade that pick? Are they going to draft Marcus Mariota to make him compete with Zach Mettenberger? There's a lot of questions that still need to be answered, and let's be honest, probably won't be answered until we actually get to the NFL draft. But I'm excited just to see what's going to happen with Marcus, because I think the Chargers, for a while, it seemed like that's what all the rumors were, and now it seems like that's really quieted down, and that's really not going to happen. When I look at it, though, from the Chargers' standpoint, it seems very clear at this point their possibility of moving to Los Angeles is very likely. Most likely, that's what's going to happen. And I think if that's the case, I don't know why you wouldn't pull the gun and offer the Phillip Rivers trade to Tennessee. Because Phillip Rivers, he's made it quite clear. He's not signing an extension because he's afraid the team's going to move to L.A. And I think he's right. They probably are going to move to L.A. So if that's the case, why are you still holding on to Phillip Rivers? There's one thing that you've learned, it's that you don't want your quarterback to be upset. If he's not happy, no one's happy, and things aren't going to go well. Now, Phillip Rivers, I mean, everything geographically would have made sense. Moving to Tennessee, it's only 100 miles from where he grew up, where his family is. It's still that's Phillip Rivers. Went to NC State. He's a southern guy. He's not a big city, flashy type guy, and I understand why he wouldn't want to go to L.A. I mean, San Diego's been his place, and look, if he doesn't want to go to LA, there's nothing you can do about it. But then the Chargers standpoint, maybe they still think they can talk him into it. Maybe they are staying in San Diego. Again, we don't have the answers yet, and we will. I mean, once the cool thing is, once that first selection is made, all the other dominoes kind of start to fall and start to make sense what's going to happen. Now, from a positional player standpoint, there's so many, and I don't even want to get into them yet because we will tomorrow with our live NFL draft show. There's plenty of time for that. But at the end of the day, this draft is always going to be remembered by what happens with Jameis Winston and what happens with Marcus Mariota. It's a quarterback league now, and we're going to see their histories coincide. They're always going to be compared with one another. Where is Jameis today? Where is Marcus today? What's going to happen 3 years from now when we look back at this draft with the two of them? That's the cool stuff. I mean, still when you look back at the draft a couple years ago with Andrew Luck, Russell Wilson, RG3, kind of those quarterbacks, and Ryan Tannehill, but he's not in the same popularity of those three guys, but he's still up there. But when you look at those three, kind of their fates are kind of always going to be remembered with one another. RG3, of course, making the playoffs his first season, dramatically has fallen off since that time. I mean, let's be honest, he's really not even in the same conversation as Russell Wilson and Andrew Luck at this point. Andrew Luck, probably one of the best quarterbacks I've ever seen in my lifetime, just from a point of what he does with what he has to work with. And Russell Wilson, the guy's been to 2 Super Bowls so far and has won one of them. He could have legitimately won 2 of them. So overall, I mean, it's just amazing. And when we look at this draft, that's the thing that I always like to think about. When we see them take this, well, they won't be taking the stage this year, which again is kind of interesting that there's so many prominent players who won't be there in attendance of the draft. But I think for the most part, I just cannot wait. I mean, it's really all going to come down to because there's so many teams linked to Marcus Mariota. And if the Buccaneers don't draft him, it's really going to be, I mean, unless Tennessee makes that number 2 pick, I don't know what's going to happen. The Eagles are still kind of in the background there. The Browns obviously have made that offer. And look, that tells you that all the rumors about the Browns being interested were true. They would not make that offer if they didn't believe it. And I think that's what you've got to ask the question about. Are they moving on from Johnny Manziel? I think if you're the Browns and your guy is Marcus Mariota, you're going to give up all these pieces for him. I think you move on. You got to part ways with Manziel. Should not be any competition between Johnny Manziel and Marcus Mariota. If you're going to do this and make these moves to go get him, that's your guy, and I don't want to hear anything else about Manziel because you're giving up an awful lot, and the two are just not even, I mean, when you try to compare them just from their mentality in the game of football, they're not even close. I think Marcus has the size, obviously Manziel does now. They both have the great escapability, making plays with their feet, making plays when nothing is there. We still haven't seen that from Manziel in the NFL, though, that they both have that working for them. But I think from a maturity standpoint, knowing where your priorities are standpoint, there's really no difference between Marcus and Johnny Manziel. And it's interesting because I don't know what's going to happen. I can't wait to see what's going to happen, but I don't know. And if I did know, well, I'd certainly be making a lot of money right now. But right now, this is where we stand in terms of the NFL draft. I'm sure there's going to be a lot more information. I doubt Tennessee, this first offer, is going to do much. If the Browns want this, they're probably going to have to sweeten the pot even more. And again, I know we're all going to kind of have it creeping in the back of our hands. What is Chip Kelly going to do? Where is he going to be during all of this? And I'm sure he's got something cooking up there of what's going to happen. But it will be a lot of fun, certainly. And we'll have our live NFL draft show. My only contract demand was I come on when Marcus Mariota gets drafted. That was my only demand. I refuse to do anything else unless that, because I pretty much consider myself one of the leading Marcus Mariota authorities. I've done so much work on him. I think I know him as a player from a standpoint like that, from his college career moving forward, but as well as anyone. And I can't wait to see where the next chapter of his football career is going to take him. But that is going to do it for the Sports Vault. We'll be back on the air a ton tomorrow with the NFL draft. Truly one of my favorite days in sports. I mean, you just cannot beat the excitement of the NFL draft for me. So I'm going to be going crazy on my computer, looking at all the updates. If something else comes on, I will smash windows open. I will use bricks to break locks open. I will find ways to get into the studio to tell you what you need to know about Marcus. But until then, everyone, thank you for listening and enjoy the NFL draft coverage.